As the group reaches Kevin's home, he is met by his mother, who is angrily awaiting her son's return, holding a switch in her hand. No sooner than they reach the foot of the porch, she erupts. "Boy, what you done now? You been messing up in school, ain't you?" No sooner than they reach the top steps, she snatches Kevin by the collar and begins to deliver rapid strikes from the rapier-like switch. Kevin yelps and howls. "Wait a minute now, ma'am." Pastor Jackson grips the angry mother's punishing arm. "There is no call for that," the pastor loudly exclaims. His authoritative voice causes the woman to halt. "Yes, don't hurt the boy. He ain't been himself today." The widow's declaration aids in pacifying Kevin's mother. His mother moved. Her mood changes from vengeful anger to that of conciliatory compassion. "Mama, sorry, baby." She tightly gripped Kevin, holding him in her arms, whereupon Kevin releases his pent-up anxiety, weeping bitterly. Kevin's mother is deeply ashamed at her earlier display. Patting the young man on the back, she guides him into the home with words of, Now, baby. Mama didn't mean nothing. You just come on in here and lay yourself down." His little sisters stop their customary commotion and stand staring in bewildered silence. Kevin's mother escorts her son into the bedroom where his cries slowly reduce to whimpers. As his mother closes his bedroom door behind her, his little sister Trina turns to the other girls whose faces reflect their concern, and, with the click of her tongue, she loudly announces her disappointment. "Dang, I wanted to see a whipping." Her words causes young Perkins to glare at her callousness. Staring back, she turns her head, and responds to his condemning gaze with a simple, "What? Hush your mouth." The widow angrily snaps. The young girl responds to her chastisement by making a face. Her disrespectful gesture calls the widow into action, who rushes toward the young girl. "You little..." She attempts to grab the child, who rushes into the back room. The sound of the door slamming reverberates throughout the house. The children begin giggling. "Hush up," the widow commands. With their leader absent, the young hellions retreat, running into the back bedroom where the sound of tiny hands banging on the door causes Trina to open it, allowing her little minions to escape into the relative safety of the room. The commotion brings Kevin's mother from the room. "What's all this ruckus?" Looking around, she finds the young children missing. "Where my babies?" The young widow begins to answer, but is cut off by young Perkins, who remarks with a wry smile, "Ma'am, I guess when they got to playing, they must have figured they was maybe bothering us. They probably just took themselves into the back room to play." With a smile of relief, Kevin's mother expresses her pleasure. "Them good babies. I don't know why folks always saying the contrary. The back room, you say? Them babies didn't want to disturb y'all. Ain't that just like my baby, Trina, always thinking about others?" Kevin's mother nervously begins wiping her hands with her apron. Looking about nervously, she gives an embarrassed smile and reminds, "Well, I reckon it's about time for me to get supper ready. Is y'all gonna stay?" The look of embarrassment reflected the shame of her earlier behavior called for the three to decline. "Thank you, ma'am. That's mighty kind. But I got to see to it Miss Hazel and the boy here get back home 'fore dark." Pastor Jackson's kind explanation allows the three to leave on a cordial note. As they depart, Miss Hazel presents Kevin's mother with a loving hug and a few compassionate words of conciliation. As they proceed in the direction of the widow's home, Pastor Jackson plies young Perkins with several questions concerning Kevin's strange behavior, all of which are met with evasion. All during the pastor's inquiries, the widow Hazel remained unusually silent. Somewhere deep down, she knew that the mysterious Mr. Pickman was the cause. He was the true heart of the matter. Her wisdom told her that, in time, young Perkins would reveal to her that which he had denied the pastor. Once more a bath was drawn. Once more the soothing warmth of relaxing water reduced tense muscles to soft, melting butter. And once more, a young man slept surrounded by the watchful gaze of 1,000 friendly eyes. The sleep of peace was shattered by the widow's frightened voice, calling, calling, calling for his ears to awaken his eyes. Rousing from the realm of dreams, young Perkins at first fails to realize that he is no longer asleep. The widow's fervent cries of distress instantly sends young Perkins into action. Throwing back the covers, he quickly opens the door. Rushing through the hallway, he briefly stops at the widow's closed door. Listening for a moment, he begins knocking at the door. Miss Hazel, Miss Hazel. With a growing sense of unease, receiving no answer, young Perkins opens the unlocked door and enters. His eyes find the widow asleep. She isn't calling for young Perkins. She is trapped in the midst of a dream, or she is trapped in the midst of a nightmare. Her words fervently call the name of her deceased husband. The young man sits at the side of the widow's bed. Miss Hazel, he calls, clasping her shoulder. Miss Hazel, wake up. Whereupon the widow wakes with a start. Oh, my dear God. The widow sits up in bed, both hands clasped tightly around young Perkins. Her head rests on his shoulder. Thank God, it's you, little man. I was having the worst dream. What was it, ma'am? Young Perkins nervously voicing his concern. The widow raises her head from the young man's shoulder and turned and gazed at the window with a far-off look in her eyes. She described her dream. Well, it was like this. I dreamed I was right here, laying right in this bed, and I heard my dear husband's voice calling, calling. I rose and I went out of the door, all the while his voice calling. I followed the sound until it led me to the cemetery, not the church cemetery, mind you. The voice led me to the potter's field, right to where he was buried. Lord, I wish he had been baptized. I heard his voice from down deep down in the earth. He was alive inside his coffin calling for me. I started digging. I started digging in the ground with my bare hands. With my bare hands, I was digging him up. As I was digging, I noticed my hands bleeding. The more they bled, the faster I dug. As I was digging, getting closer to his coffin, the sound of his screaming began to get louder. When I got right down to the wood, I noticed my hands were different. They weren't my normal hands, they were claws. My whole body had changed. I was something not human. I was something from hell. My body was covered with scales and matted fur like a wild animal. I was something, I don't know, God help me. All I know is I was hungry. I was starving. Then because I hungered, I ripped open the wood of the casket where my husband lay. Oh, my God, my God. There he was, alive and staring, and there I was over him, looking down. It was me. But it wasn't the me I am now. I was something else. And being that something else, I had no cause to heed his cries. I dug into him, into his belly. I can still remember the taste of his flesh, the sickening sweet, metallic taste of his blood. His bowels. Lord Jesus. She moans with a shudder. All the while I was doing this, there was that Mr. Pickman, standing right above me, stroking my head. Young Perkins recognizes the nature of the widow's dream. None of her husbands had been baptized. One of them indeed did lay in the unhallowed ground of the potter's field, there to rot among the graves of the forgotten dead. How could anyone's soul find peace beneath the mournful shade of those accursed willows? She was reliving the night before. How could she know? She was there at the church. Did Kevin tell? No, he wouldn't tell. He wouldn't tell anyone what we saw. He knew no one would believe us if we even tried to describe what chased us that god-awful night. Nevertheless, the widow saw. Even if but through a dream, she saw. The sound of something brushing against the home, against the bushes, sends a wave of fear rushing over the two. The young widow attempts to rise to ascertain the nature of the sound. She is suddenly halted by young Perkins, who holds her fast. "Wait," he implores. His eyes beg her to remain in place. The beast-like growls threaten entry. The sound of jagged claws drag along the home's wooden frame. The young widow forcefully removes young Perkins' arm from around her. Rising from her bed, she boldly walks across the room. Opening the top drawer of the dresser, she withdraws a heavy, long-barreled, blue steel old-fashioned .45 caliber peacemaker. Holding the heavy iron with both hands, she states, "We'll see about this." The widow cocks the hammer back to half-cocked. Straining a bit, she continues to pull until the hammer clicks to full cocked, using the force of both thumbs to do so. The nauseating stench once more rises, reminding young Perkins of the night he and Kevin fled from the creature, how the foul odor built with its approach. "You smell that?" the widow questions. Her face grimaces as the odor begins to permeate the entire home. From beneath her bedroom window, a figure emerges ever so briefly. Its distorted silhouette reflected nothing human. A thunderous explosion shakes the room as the widow fires. The concussion of the blast deafening the two, their ears ringing. They must shout to understand each other. Her aim must have been true. For the bullet, although shattering the window, must have struck the creature as howls of unearthly pain pierced the night. Whoever, or whatever it was, had been wounded, struck by the bite of .45 caliber ball. "You got it," the young man shouts through ringing ears. The young widow gives no reply. She again pulls the hammer of the revolver all the way back to half, then full cocked, all the while keeping her gaze fixed on the window that was now shattered by the bullet. The howling echoes into the distance, and, with its retreat, so follows the horrendous odor. They were safe for tonight. "Come tomorrow," exclaims the widow. "I'm going down to the sheriff's office and report this." "No, Miss Hazel," young Perkins cautioned. "Let's tell Pastor Jackson first." The young man knowing all the while the thing that assaulted their home that night, though mortal, possessed no origin of humanity.
Okay, we are diving straight into some really intense emotional territory today. The scene just drops us right in, starts with this huge, rapid conflict, and then, well, it shifts into genuine supernatural terror.
It does. The source material, it's this single, really dense chapter from a bigger story, and it definitely doesn't ease you in.
Not at all. You've got this mother waiting with a switch, and the text calls it rapier-like, just ready for her son Kevin the second he gets home.
And the confrontation is immediate. It's
What?
physical, very, very volatile, a real explosion of domestic trauma.
So our mission here today, it's not just to recap these frankly shocking events. We want to really pull out the core mechanics, what's actually happening beneath the surface.
Exactly. We're going to extract, I think, 3 key themes for you. First, how this kind of extreme emotional conflict gets, well, contained and maybe resolved through social force.
Okay.
Second, how hidden knowledge, the real truth, gets kind of forced out through psychological trauma, like nightmares.
Yeah.
And finally, how people actually choose their tools and their authorities when they're up against something that, well, doesn't fit any normal mortal category.
Right. 3 distinct movements, all high tension. There's the public fight that gets stopped by this powerful intervention, then this internal conflict that bursts out in a terrifying, almost prophetic nightmare.
Yeah.
And then, boom, a physical fight involving some pretty serious old school hardware.
So let's unpack that first big scene, the intervention moment.
Hmm.
How does that change everything? Hashtag tag I. The volatility of home and the power of intervention.
Well, it kicks off with just pure rage, doesn't it? The mother grabs Kevin, collar first, yelling about him, messing up in school, and she's hitting him, these rapid strikes immediately. The source really paints this picture of terror and just chaos, loud chaos.
Yeah, but the chaos stops on a dime because someone else steps in, right? Pastor Jackson grips her arm.
And uses that authoritative voice, as the source calls it, just declares there is no call for that.
It's like flipping a switch. She just freezes. Mid-strike almost. And that's the critical moment I think we need to look at. The pastor, he doesn't counsel. He doesn't ask questions about Kevin. He just imposes immediate, external control.
Right. It's not about feelings. It's about power.
Exactly. It's a transfer of authority in that moment.
Yeah.
He manages to redirect all that intense, volatile energy from the mother.
And he gets a little help from the widow Hazel, who just offers this tiny justification. He ain't been himself today. Just that little phrase.
Seems to be enough, doesn't it? It gives the mother a sort of socially acceptable out from her own rage. The text says her anger just flips instantly to conciliatory compassion.
Conciliatory compassion. That's an interesting phrase.
It is, and here's the insight maybe. It's that compassion, the flip side of the same volatility. She goes from hitting Kevin to clutching him, apologizing, feeling this deep shame, but, is the actual problem solved?
Doesn't feel like it.
Or is that rage just sort of buried quickly under shame, made possible by the pastor stepping in? It's a really fragile 180-degree turn emotionally.
Yeah, it feels very buried. And the proof is maybe in what happens next, how normalized this all seems. While the mother's dealing with Kevin crying, her daughter, Trina.
Oh, Trina.
She turns to everyone watching, clucks her tongue, and just announces, like, she's disappointed. Dang, I wanted to see a whipping.
I mean, what a detail. It's brutal, dark realism.
It really is.
It just shows the psychological toll, doesn't it? Living under that kind of pressure. Trina's callousness, it completely clashes with the pastor's attempt to bring in civility and calm.
And her comment sparks another little scuffle between the kids, which young Perkins has to handle.
Which brings us to Perkins being, well, pretty quick on his feet when Kevin's mother comes back, still clearly shaken and ashamed.
He steps in with a wry smile, the text says, and just lies instantly.
Claims the kids went to the back room deliberately so they wouldn't bother the adults.
It's another intervention, isn't it? But this one's about saving face, restoring the social appearance of things.
Totally. Perkins saves the mother from having to deal with Trina's comment or her own shame from moments before, and she buys it instantly. Beams with pride, apparently, that her good babies were being respectful.
Allows the whole group to leave on sort of cordial terms, maintaining that illusion of peace, even though the mother's still described as nervous and embarrassed. Tag to evasion, intuition, and the presence of Mr. Pickman.
So the pastor managed to impose that fragile civility back at the house. But Perkins, he knows it's fragile. He knows it's based on his own lie, really.
Right, and as they're walking home, Pastor Jackson tries to figure out what's really going on with Kevin, asking Perkins questions about his strange behavior.
But Perkins isn't having it. He's actively resisting that authority figure now. just gives him firm evasion, the text says.
Why? Why stonewall the pastor?
Because Perkins is guarding this secret, the secret about Mr. Pickman and the creature they encountered. He seems to understand, maybe instinctively, that the pastor's authority works fine for, human problems, domestic fights, moral issues.
And not for this.
Not for entities with no origin of humanity. That's outside the pastor's toolkit, perhaps.
So Perkins chooses silence, withholding the truth from the spiritual leader. But someone else on that walk does seem to get it, the widow Hazel.
Ah, yes. Her silent wisdom. She's unusually silent, according to the source, but she's relying on her gut feeling. She knows somewhere deep down that this mysterious Mr. Pickman, he's the real issue, the true heart of the matter.
So she doesn't need Perkins to spell it out.
It seems not. Her silence suggests this quiet trust. She figures Perkins will tell her the horrifying truth eventually, the truth he just denied the pastor.
So you have these two tracks of authority running side by side, the formal social authority of the pastor
versus this quiet, intuitive knowledge shared between Perkins and the widow, almost a hidden understanding.
And that hidden understanding, that intuition, it really sets the stage for the next section, which just shatters whatever peace Perkins might have hoped for. #3. The traumatic nightmare and monstrous transformation.
Yeah, Perkins gets this sleep of peace, but it doesn't last. Not long at all. It gets completely ripped apart by the widow's voice described as frightened and her fervent cries of distress.
He rushes over, finds her reliving something awful, not just a bad dream, but real trauma surfacing.
And the details she gives when she wakes up,
Yeah.
they're not just scary, they're deeply theological.
Yeah.
And tied directly to her own guilt, it seems.
She dreamt she heard her dead husband calling her name, but not from, a peaceful place, from the potter's field.
The place for the unbaptized, unhallowed ground. Instantly connects to religious shame, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And then the transformation, as she's digging for him in the dream.
It's horrific. Her hands become claws. Her body gets covered in scales and matted fur like a wild animal. She literally calls herself something from hell.
So the dream is forcing her to confront this deep shame about her husband not being baptized, her feeling maybe powerless about his soul.
Seems like it. And then the absolute horror peaks with the act of consumption.
Oh, yeah. Ripping open his casket, eating his flesh, his bowels, describing the taste, sickening, sweet, metallic taste of his blood. It's just the most primal, awful image.
Truly visceral. But the real key here, the crucial insight perhaps, is Mr. Pickman's role in this nightmare.
He's there, isn't he?
He is. But he's not the one doing the consuming. He's the audience. He's the curator of her shame. She says that Mr. Pickman, you could almost hear the stuttering fear, was standing over her the whole time, stroking my head.
Stroking her head while she's
committing this horrific act in the dream. It suggests Pickman is weaponizing her guilt, her repressed religious trauma. He's forcing her into this monstrous, unholy ritual based on her past failures.
So he operates by enabling and sort of watching the shame, not by doing the violence himself. That's insidious.
It really is. And Perkins gets it immediately. He realizes this wasn't just some random nightmare. It confirmed the husband's status, the burial site. It suggests she was somehow reliving or psychically witnessing the demonic stuff from the night before. She saw it, even if it was through this psychological horror show.
Which makes the transition to the physical threat feel even more immediate, more real. #5E. The confrontation and the .45 peacemaker.
Yeah, that shift is incredible. You go from the deepest, most internal psychological horror
straight to blunt force, physical threat. The narrative gives us zero time to process Pickman's head games before there's a sound, something brushing against the outside of the house.
accompanied by beast-like growls. And then that sound, jagged claws dragging along the home's wooden frame. You can almost hear it.
And the smell is back. That nauseating stench, the source calls it. The same foul odor from when Perkins and Kevin ran from the creature earlier. It's literally right outside their door now.
And this is where the widow completely shifts gears. Total contrast to her vulnerability in the dream. Terror seems to just flip into resolve.
She goes for the hardware.
She does. Pulls out this heavy, long-barreled, blue steel, old-fashioned .45 caliber peacemaker from her dresser.
And the source makes a point of describing how she handles it, using both thumbs to cock the hammer back. First a half cock, then full cock. It's meticulous.
That detail feels important, doesn't it? It's not panic firing. It emphasizes this conscious, deliberate effort. She's choosing a very mortal, very decisive solution here.
And the weapon itself, the peacemaker, that's loaded with symbolism, right? Frontier justice, law and order, the sheriff's domain.
Exactly. She's reaching for a tangible, civil authority kind of solution against an enemy that Perkins at least knows is fundamentally not mortal, not human.
She gets a glimpse of it, a distorted silhouette that reflected nothing human, and then she fires.
Thunderous explosion shatters the window, deafens them temporarily, but they know she hit something. The sound afterwards, these howls of unearthly pain cutting through the night, that confirms the .45 caliber ball found its mark. The creature was hit.
So the immediate threat retreats, the howling fades, the smell goes away. They've defended themselves, physically at least.
Right. But that success, that moment of safety, it leads directly into the chapter's final conflict. Who do you tell? What authority do you turn to now?
The widow's first instinct is clear.
Yep. Straight to the mortal authorities.
Yeah.
I'm going down to the sheriff's office and report this. Makes sense. She just used a tool of that authority.
But Perkins pushes back immediately. No, Mrs. Hazel, let's tell Pastor Jackson first.
He's rejecting the sheriff, rejecting the civil authority represented by the very gun she just successfully used.
Connecting back to him stonewalling the pastor earlier.
I think so. He seems convinced that even though this thing can be hurt, it possessed no origin of humanity. For Perkins, this isn't just a disturbance of the peace. It's a theological problem. A spiritual war, maybe, not a legal one.
Which just sets up this huge dilemma for whatever happens next, right? Do you call the cops or the priest when the monster comes knocking? Hashtag outro before.
So yeah, we've really journeyed through quite an arc here. Started with that fragile civility the pastor imposed on the domestic mass.
Right. Then plunged into that nightmare where Pickman weaponized trauma and guilt.
And ended with a successful, very physical defense against this creature that seems to have, as Perkins says, no origin of humanity. Using a peacemaker, no less.
And that final moment leaves us, and leaves you, the listener, with this really profound question that ties it all together, doesn't it?
It really does. The widow instinctively goes for the sheriff, the civil authority, maybe symbolized by the gun she used, the authority that intervened earlier.
But Perkins insists on Pastor Jackson, the spiritual guide, whose domain covers the kind of faith and guilt Pickman exploited in that nightmare.
So when you're facing a threat that's fundamentally non-human, who do you turn to first? Is the mortal law, the sheriff, the right first call?
Or do you need the spiritual guide, the pastor? Is it about defining the enemy correctly before you decide who fights it?
The choice isn't just procedural, is it? It's about understanding the nature of the threat itself.
Definitely something to think about on your own. The power of the peacemaker versus the power of the pastor. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.